The Walker Arts Center is this really vital catalytic space in Minneapolis that brings artists and audiences together. Our visitors can come not only and see some of the most dynamic and compelling art that's being produced today, but can actually meet and hear from the individuals who make these artworks and are responding to our world.
I'm not photographing people retreating, I'm photographing the desire to retreat. It's like, how do you picture desire?
The artists themselves are really the brilliant innovators, and I feel that they are looking at technology, they're looking at the way people live their lives, they're looking at conflict, they're looking at all the questions that matter to our culture at large, and they're reinterpreting these pressing questions through their creative work.
Jerusalem is, of course, a sacred city, so how do you expand the sacredness architecturally?
Art provides bridges of conversation and understanding, and so we see ourselves as a space that convenes and brings people together to talk about ideas, to talk about issues in our world.
What I'm trying to do is queer the space, get you guys outside of your normative rules.
When artists come to the Walker, they expect to take a risk. They expect the audience to come along for the experience.
Allow my viewer to see the gray areas in me, which are the most politically honest areas I can give you.
And artists today are often thinking in multiple formats. So the Walker's been a place that's lived that kind of production and presentation for over 50 years.
The thing itself it's got its own energy. It's its own organism,
Right.
And it's had its own way of developing and finding itself.
Right. It finds its
Yeah.
voice, and with that voice, it tells you what it needs.
There's been this long history and legacy of the Walker and NEA's involvement. The first grant was for the Center Opera Company, which ultimately became the Minnesota Opera that was incubated here at the Walker. It supported conservation projects, jazz series. It helped with acquiring works for the collection, and also when the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden was launched in 1988, many of the new commissions were supported with the NEA.
We really look to not only the finest artists, but the most innovative, quizzical, curious artists that we can find out there, and want to support them to take their art forms in new directions.
When Ralph Lemon came to the Walker and said, I want to do a new work, he said, I don't want to do it on stage, I want to do it in a gallery. So began a series of questions that became Scaffold Room.
It was a charged, fascinating piece of theatrical expression combined with installation, and we did a month-long residency with Ralph to develop this work. We did a steampunk musical called Futurity, and we helped co-commission it. We worked with a couple of partners around the country. It had its first performances here after a residency, and now it's running successfully at an off-Broadway theater in New York. A company called Elevator Repair Service was supported by the NEA to make a brand new work, a sort of absurdist and surreal piece of large-scale experimental theater.
Yes, it's true. I'd say also the NEA has helped us support not just bringing new works and supporting the production of new works, but also supporting some of the great masters of our time. And a project that we're really proud of that we collaborated with the NEA was presenting Merce Cunningham's Ocean, which is really one of Merce's masterworks. Merce Cunningham, one of the great choreographers of our time, and we were able to do a fantastic multi-day festival of realizing ocean in a rock quarry in northern Minnesota that was a real highlight of Merce's career. The Walker Art Center is a multidisciplinary art center that has been active for 75 years. Originally supported through the Works Progress Administration and the Federal Art Project, but it began with the name of our founder, T.B. Walker, who opened his home to the citizens of Minneapolis and visitors to our community back in the 1870s. It was the first free public art gallery west of the Mississippi. 2015 is the 75th anniversary year, and we have an exhibition that's on view right now called Art at the Center, 75 Years of Walker Collections, that really start with the first acquisition of Franz Marc's Blue Horses that launched the Art Center. It's more contemporary focused and artist center focused. In the late 80s and early 90s, when the culture wars were at play and the Robert Mapplethorpe exhibition was causing controversy around whether the NEA should continue to exist, whether visual artists should continue to be supported, the Walker took a strong stand, speaking on behalf of the support of artists and of institutions. And our director then, Martin Friedman, testified before Congress and took a very active role on a national level to really make a case for the importance of supporting art and bringing culture forward in all its expressions and supporting the freedom of expression and the freedom of artistic practice.
The spirit of innovation is a real value. It's why often so many American artists end up on international festivals and are viewed as influential forces. If we didn't have the kind of support we have from the NEA, the work would not be as strong. The connections with audiences and community members would be weaker. It's a real imprimatur for the Walker to know that the NEA believes in our work. We are proud of the fact that the artists that we've supported, and we've had over 260 commissions, have gone on often to become some of the world-class, most acclaimed American artists working.